So, Abe, it's really wonderful you came here to Gettysburg to give your Gettysburg Address speech. It's quite amazing what you did in your career as a politician and as President of the United States. Quite impressive. And so I guess you're going to go up to the Gettysburg Cemetery and give the Gettysburg Address. 70 years ago, our fathers brought forth in this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Well, kind of missed out on that. The Constitution, Declaration of Independence, rather, kind of missed out on the fact that there are women in this country, and also the slaves in this country were also people. But other than that, the framers of the Constitution got it right. So it was a good statement and a really wonderful speech. And we'll chit chat later with Perry Como here and his sweater and his 1980s sneakers. And so I guess that's normal though, because this was dedicated in 1991. So we're at the square in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, downtown Gettysburg, and I'll talk about you, Abe, in a second here, and then talk about climate change. So give me a second to get set up, and I'll let you all look at the wonderful downtown square at Gettysburg with all the traffic. It is 7:25 a.m., and you'd think it was rush hour in New York City right now. That's how things are going, though. So Abraham Lincoln, there's much to admire about him. And he gave us this. He wrote the last draft of the Gettysburg Address here at this building here, and before he went to the cemetery the next day to give his speech that became part of history. So, but there's much to admire about Lincoln. He got us through the Civil War single-handedly, almost. With his strength and perseverance, a lesser politician would not have been able to stand up to what he stood up to, and he paid for it with his very life. There's things that he did as a politician makes you scratch his head, as do people about all politicians. He had to suspend habeas corpus when he got into Washington, D.C. They were basically cut off from the outside world due to protests and actual threats against his life. And he had habeas corpus installed, which allowed the military to arrest anyone that was in insurrection against him or the United States in general, or protesting. And it was a horrible thing to do, but I guess they had to do it because it opened up an avenue then from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, and allowed them to have safety coming to them as far as troops and communications and things like that. Then he gave the Emancipation Proclamation speech later on in 1862 or 3, I think it was 1862, after the Battle of Antietam. What it did is everyone interprets it as it freed the slaves. Well, actually it didn't. It freed the slaves that were behind enemy lines or in the areas that were insurrection against the Union. And so it's like me freeing your children from your house. I have no reason to do that. But what it did is, as a political statement, it kept England and France out of the Civil War and made it a case of the Civil War is about slavery. And it would be hugely unpopular in France and England to fight on the side of the Confederacy and provide them with weapons and arms. So it's really a great statement. And then later on, it allowed black people to join the military also in the Civil War, and add a lot of manpower to the Union Army. So this is July 15th. This is number 188, Climate Change Emergency Protest, Hello World. Next week will be number 189. That'll be July 22nd, 2022. And as I said, this is number 188, July 15th, 2022. So Lincoln was assassinated in 1865. He served as president from 1861 to 1865. And one of my favorite speeches of his was done earlier in the 1850s. And it was at the Republican Convention in 1858, somewhere in there. Anyways, he gave the House divided against itself cannot stand speech. He said, either we'll live, right now we cannot live as half free and half slave as a country. Either one or the other will prevail, but neither one will live separately within the country. So it's either going to be all slave or all free, but it cannot keep standing like this and keep splitting in half and survive as a country. And we're kind of that way right now. We all got to work together or not. Climate change is one such example of that, and the most important event in human history. If we don't either all stand together against climate change, we'll surely fall apart and die separately. Right now, state of the world right this second, and I'm missing tons of information here, but this is just a small example. Italy is in a state of emergency right now due to drought. Many of their rivers are drying up. They're having severe drought in Italy. Lisbon, Portugal, just recently experienced 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 46 degrees Celsius. Shanghai, China, experienced 40 degrees, 0.9 degrees Celsius, which was 105.6 Fahrenheit. Lake Powell in the United States and Lake Mead in the United States are the lowest ever. They're the two largest reservoirs in the United States, and the water is getting so low that electric generation due to the dams are soon to end, and water will run out eventually, and it supplies millions of people with water from those reservoirs. So it's going to be a severe issue in the United States, and they're doing absolutely nothing other than saying that people can only water their lawns in the West once a week. That's insanity what's going on. Texas in the United States and central and southwest United States are experiencing repeated days of over 100 degrees. And the thing about the United States is much of our food comes from the central United States and western United States. So if there's no water there, we get no food, and there'll soon be a food crisis around the world and the United States in general. South America is experiencing severe floods, also hailstorms, and so is Mexico. There's food crisis in Africa. Tens of millions of people are in food emergency, and soon to be in starvation emergency here coming up by September. Fires in Alaska are happening right now in the United States. That's way up north due to drought as well. Japan's in a heat wave and has been in a heat wave, or had been in a heat wave, quite severe. The United States, if you go to USA Drought Monitor, you can see how severe the drought is in the United States. It's horrible. And so I say the world needs to declare, and they won't do it. These are things that need to be done that will absolutely not get done because it's not popular and the case has not been made. But the world needs to declare a worldwide climate change emergency, a worldwide climate emergency, in fact. You don't need to say climate change. We're in severe trouble as far as the planet goes and life on Earth, and people don't even know it. So now back to a house divided. Either we're all going to battle climate change and conquer it, or it will dominate us. It won't be one or the other, because things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and people don't even know about it. The USA media does not cover anything other than some events happening, and they're not making the case, and they're not using the words climate change because it would upset so many people, and certain groups would turn off and not even pay attention to them. But this idea that the politicians and the media are pussyfooting around and not addressing the issue of climate change and making the case known as to what is going on around the world is ridiculous. They're looking for careers or to save their own parties rather than looking for the good of people in the United States and around the world. And the case is not being made. And this is why surely we will all die. And it's coming, and it's coming very quickly now. This is no longer a theory. You're seeing people die right now around the world. It's costing trillions and trillions of dollars around the world, and people are starving to death, and people get flooded, people burning up in fires, properties are burning up in fires, food production's off. But let's keep going the way we are, and everything will be hunky-dory. So, I contend that climate change right now is more like an avalanche. It starts small, and then it gathers more and more snow, or in this case, more and more climate change, and more feedback loops occur until it runs out of control, and you can no longer do anything with it. You can no longer control your life, and I surmise that right now we're at that moment that if at all, we're at the last chance, if we have any chance at all, to control our destiny. This is it, and people don't even know it's happening. There's still no discussion about climate change. No friends, no family want to talk about it. No people around here want to talk about it. This should be having massive protests in the street all the time. What's going on? People should be doing speeches like this all the time. And when I do my speech, it should be one of millions of speeches going on online with social media and all. But it's not happening. People don't realize. People are just going about their lives buying the big gas guzzlers and looking at me like I got a screw loose. And eventually everyone's going to be a climate change expert, but it's going to be way too late. So the fossil fuel companies, they made record profit in the first quarter of 2022, and you can't make record profits and then contend there's not enough oil. This is BS. There's obviously enough oil around, and they don't need to pump any more out of the ground or do new exploration for oil. Recently, I think yesterday or this morning or whatever, Joe Manchin from West Virginia shot down the proposal, the so-called proposal for a climate change law. You know, it's a mealy-mouthed law. It doesn't go far enough, doesn't get going, and no one's made the case about climate change. And they're going to blame Joe Manchin because it's politically expedient to do that. But the fact is, it goes all the way back to the media, and the politicians have not made the case about climate change. Therefore, Joe Manchin is comfortable in voting against the bill and tanking the whole bill. But in reality, the fault lies with those who were supposed to make the case way ahead of time, such as the presidents of the United States who have failed. People just gas guzzling and blowing out stuff. Failed repeatedly to make the case about climate change and how much of a dire situation it is. It's not a Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. So, there's no talk, no politicians, no media talk about it. So we're at the last moments of our ability to affect climate change. It doesn't mean you give up, but it means that we're going to go into a hellscape. And many people dying right now, they're already in the hellscape. So also the Supreme Court decided to eliminate the Environmental Protection Agency in one of their decisions from the ability to act on companies violating air quality or other climate change issues. And so a lot of anger going on anymore. So they're violating, they cannot act on people and companies violating climate change issues. And so they've taken the ball out of their hands. They said that it's up to the Congress to decide. Well, Congress is a political organization. They're not going to do it. And if you eliminate places that are developed initially to do that job of monitoring what's going on, then what's the point of having that position in the government anyway? So the future is very bleak. If you're depending on Congress to do the laws and monitor things, they're not going to do it. They're way too busy, supposedly, and they have no political will to do it because, again, the case for climate change has not been made. So it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is survival, and this is an extinction issue. And I'm sure people listening right now are going, sure, Jim. Well, it is, and people are dying, as I said, all over the place, around the whole world, and nothing's happening, and conditions are getting worse and worse and worse. So what we need to do is demand that legislators, if you all ever get up to speed, and your friends get up to speed as to what's actually happening, and good luck with that, you demand that they make legislation and laws and put them up constantly, and what it does is force the votes. You cannot stay in committee and pretend like you're going to get something done, as they are with this latest Build Back Better plan or whatever the heck it was for climate change. You get it out on the floor, you make them vote, make everyone put their name down as far as whether it's up or down as far as the vote, and they're the ones to blame at that point that they decided not to vote for it. Then you constantly put new bills down. You don't just quit after one bill and give up. You put another one up, then another and another, and those people in charge could easily do this, and they're choosing not to do it. So what you do is you force the votes, but you also tell them, as citizens, through these types of broadcasts in general on postings, say, we will vote for no one, no Democrat, no Republican in this country and around the world, your parties, unless they actually take action for climate change and constantly do that and don't give up on it and don't give up on it. This is an issue that's never going to go away in our lifetime and our children's lifetime if they survive, which I seriously doubt the way we're going. So what we need to do is demand the end for fossil fuel subsidies. Hold on. And this is why I don't broadcast downtown, not only from a safety issue. I can't have a placard. Hold on. So I can't have a placard about climate change because everyone's upset about the gas prices, and I will be verbally, if not physically, attacked. I don't feel safe doing this, and I can get away with it right now because I'm just talking. But if anyone's coming around, it ends up being a whole argument and everything. So what we need to do is demand an end to fossil fuel subsidies, and if they're serious about it and serious about climate change, that's what they would do. In 2020, over $6 trillion were given to the fossil fuel companies as a subsidy. understand this. They made record profits, and with our tax money around the whole world and in the United States, we're giving them money to explore and do whatever. A company that's making record profits doesn't need subsidies. That's just rubble bouncing and giving more money to them as they steal our taxpayers' money, and they continue to make record profits on our backs. So we also need to demand an end to the Willow Project in Alaska, terminate leases on federal lands, and terminate the 80 million acres that Joe Biden leased off as well in the Gulf of Mexico. 80 million acres is like Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland combined in land area. It's a huge area. The Willow Project is in Alaska. That's over a crazy amount of oil for the whole project over 30 years. It's several billion barrels, I think it is, over that term. So these type of things, even though it's going to go to court, need to be terminated. And we need to take action right now. And all you do is you cite climate change and safety for the whole human race and all life on Earth. That is the reason why you're doing this. And that should win out in a normal place, but our Supreme Court has lost their mind on certain issues. So we need to return back to the USA. Joe Biden needs to return back to the USA. Right now he's in Saudi Arabia, about to be begging the Saudis to generate more oil, so that we have more oil for the fossil fuel companies and for the world, supposedly to bring down gas prices. Right now, the refineries are producing gasoline as fast as they can. There's a glut of oil on hand. Barack Obama gave a speech, if you look at it, in front of Oklahoma, Cushing, Oklahoma, back 10 years ago, saying they laid enough pipe, he and Joe Biden laid enough pipe to go around the world just in the United States. There's more enough oil and gas, natural gas, which is methane, which is a horrible greenhouse gas. There's enough gas and oil available, methane, as I said, to keep the United States going forever and keep the world going. And not forever, but as long as we can until we all die. So, this idea of getting the Saudis to pump out more oil and stuff is not what a climate change president does. You're kidding yourself believing this party or that party is about climate change. They are not. Nobody, no big-time politician is about climate change. Nobody cares. It's all about making money for their friends and corporate allies. So, in Pennsylvania, for example, right now, we have two people running for Senate, both parties, and you have Democrat and Republican, and then you have running for governor, Democrat and Republican. All four persons are frackers. They believe in fracking. They believe in jobs for Pennsylvania. And what it is jobs over survival. This is an insane attitude, and they're, again, playing political games with our very lives, and they all have children. And it's quite surprising to me that anyone would advocate for more fracking and oil production and natural gas production, when we're all on a perilous path to death. And I mean all life on Earth. We'll be lucky if we have an amoeba left after we torch the Earth here. So subsidies need to end. The money, the $6 to $18 trillion, depending on where you look, that's $6 to $18 trillion a year going to the fossil fuel companies. The money needs to go back to the taxpayers, or more importantly, to research and development for ideas about renewables and ideas what to do about our future and how to combat climate change and what we could do immediately. Last week I gave a video, and during the middle of the video, if you look at it, it was number 187. You could, in the middle of it, I gave possible solutions as to, about climate change and what we could do for mass transit and different ideas about easy ideas, low-hanging fruit as to what every town could do, every place could do about climate change and battle climate change on their own and make it a popular issue. But nope, it's not going to happen. So we all must demand better people, running for office. And you can't demand people unless you're knowledgeable about what's happening in the world. You're just demanding and you don't know why you're demanding it. People are just voting for the sake of voting, rather than looking at the issues as to who's running and what they're standing for. So either we get better people or we will not survive. In order to survive, we have to work together on climate change and environmental issues, or we will surely soon die. This is what Abraham Lincoln was talking about. A house divided against itself cannot stand. We will not survive this unless we all work together and understand that we need to do this in order to survive. I mean, this is survival. what's going to happen is in the United States, and we've been very well insulated in the Northeast, and that's why you're not seeing media coverage, because everyone's based in New York and they're not experiencing climate change firsthand. Yeah, they'll report about Texas or central United States or other places, never cover the world at all, even though it's supposedly world news. But they're not covering it, and the media is based in New York City. And that place will eventually experience climate change, and by the time they do, it'll be way out of control. And, they had Hurricane Sandy, which caused devastation. But it's going to get way out of control, and by the time they get on board, it's way too late. So I don't know what to tell you other than do your research, go down YouTube, and, find out about climate change. Go down this page that I'm on, Facebook page, Jim McHenry. Go to Environmental Coffee House. Go to Peter Carter. Go to Paul Beckwith. Go to Arctic News. Sam Carena on Facebook. There's tons of things on Facebook and on YouTube that you need to learn about climate change to become not even an expert, just knowledgeable about it, that you do the right vote and start demanding better people running for office. So we're going to work together, or we will surely die alone and separately. That's the house divided part. We're going to die separately and alone, and you're going to be fighting for your very life by yourself, or with maybe a friend or two or a couple family members. And doing a compound won't help when you're starving to death, or the area's burning up, or there's no food available or no water available. So you think you can work together that way, mitigation, and that's not going to happen. So we need the courage over fear. You need to have extreme courage. And, this is not easy doing what I'm doing every week and supposedly making a fool out of myself in front of everybody, because people really don't understand what's going on. We've experienced, Tanya and I've experienced that people walk on eggshells around us about climate change. They will not mention it, won't bring it up. And I am sorry for that, and I'm sorry it makes people uncomfortable, but that's not my problem. I don't understand the lack of thought and the lack of forward thinking. I know so many people that have college degrees, bachelor degrees, doctorate degrees, and they still refuse to bring it up. So it needs to be a situation of courage over fear. This is not fun to do this. I hate doing this every week. I shouldn't have to do this every week. I should have been able to stop at one, but this is number 188. So, I hope everyone becomes educated. As I said, do your homework, go down, take time. Seriously, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes. Look at your kids and go, hey, I really need to do this, or do speeches. But first off, I need to learn about climate change and do what's right and get to it. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be number 189. That'll be on July 22nd, 2022. Thanks for hanging in there, and I will see you later.